Carol's talk today is based on Judgment. And the reading is taken from teachings 142 and 195. In the beginning of chapter 8 of the Gospel of St. John, we hear the story of the woman taken in adultery and how eager are the unevolved souls to get the Lord to condemn the woman. We caught her. We took her in sin. Now what have you to say? The religious leaders of the Jews hoped that they were going to catch the Master. What are you going to say to her? They challenged. But he did not look at them. He did not look at the woman. He was concerned with writing something on the earth. He did not look up. We want you to see in this gentle, sweet spirit of the Christ. He was ever thus. He did not even look at the woman's accusers or at the woman. He did not want to embarrass them. He did not want to accuse them, even with a look. So he put his head down instead and wrote. In this very simple act, there is great depth of meaning. Jesus resorted to the law of God. He did not condemn the condemners, and he did not condemn the condemned. He endeavored to set in motion, by his very attitude, certain spiritual forces which would awaken the conscience in both the accusers and the accused. Is that not a wonderful thing? How many on earth can do that? And yet it is the very thing which happens in the spiritual world and in the law of karma. That is what Jesus was endeavoring to teach in his actions. He did not condemn even the accusers. He did not look at them because he did not wish to make them guilty or uncomfortable. They had yet to learn this truth. He expressed in thought and action the Spirit of his Father God. Earthly people do not judge like this, but God does. God puts the judge into the heart. He is not the outside judge, but the judge within the man, because he is the God within the man. It is God in the man that is true in life and love. Hath no man condemned thee? Then neither do I condemn thee, said Jesus. But he knew that the woman had sinned. What does this mean? This means that we must be able to recognize right from wrong, but not judge the sinner. We know, but we do not speak. We leave it. We are silent. We dare not judge. And the older a soul grows, the stronger grows this knowledge and the truth within it. The true teacher, the true son, withholds condemnation because every man has a conscience. If the conscience is at work, no man can condemn his brother. Therefore Jesus the Master, the Son of God, said, neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. These words would go right into the heart of the woman. Her conscience would rise, and she would know that the Master was not condoning the breaking of the law of earth. You may look upon a certain act. You need not judge that act, but you can learn from your observation of it. You see more truly. In a nutshell, you learn discrimination. As the man passes through these phases, through these different ages, he is developing some part of the soul. And remember that the soul of man, when viewed from the higher spheres, is very beautiful. You currently only see through a glass darkly, and you judge in the dark, but you should not judge at all. Yes, we know that reason is yours, and you think you've earned the right to judge, but no man has any such right. He can examine, he can discover certain aspects of truth, but he cannot judge the whole. He can discern what his spirit tells him is beauty. He can discern truth. He can discern false from the true. He can discern, but not judge. There's a difference. The Master Jesus said, judge not, that ye not be judged.
Well, good morning. So all of y'all have chosen today to come and hear my talk. How wonderful. Everybody is working on themselves, just like I am working on myself. If you haven't already realized, I'm really working diligently on myself. And so I'm bringing these things that I am working on to talk about because it helps me and hopefully it will help you. Well, in the passage that Vicki just talked about, of course, the teachers of the law, the Pharisees, brought in a woman caught in adultery. And in the law of Moses, commanded us to stone such women. And so he asked Jesus, because they were trying to test Jesus, catch him on the spot, of course, and see what he would say. But Jesus, all he did was not look at them, not look at the woman, but wrote something on the earth. And I heard years ago, I don't know if it's true or not, it's just somebody's thought, but it makes sense to me. He was writing some of the sins of the Pharisees that were judging this woman. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it seems to me that if they saw what he was writing, they would sort of think again about, well, I've done some things myself, in secret probably, and so how can I judge this woman? And just Jesus said, let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. And so seeing, or perhaps even having some thoughts about the fact that maybe they weren't as pure as they wanted everyone to believe they were, they decided to leave one at a time, where at last there was no one left there to judge her. And so Jesus straightened up and asked her, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, sir, she said. Then neither do I condemn you. Jesus declared to her, go now and leave your life of sin. Well, judgment, I could make this talk very short and just say judgment is of the ego, and forgiveness and non-judgment is of the higher self. But that's not as easy for me to work those things out. I have to try to discover in myself, what is it in me that wants to make judgment of other people? Is there something unhealed within me that I need to look at? And so that's what I've been doing. I've been looking at my thoughts. And when I first started doing this, it was amazing how much judgment I was doing. I know it came from old belief systems like, oh my gosh, why does somebody want their hair blue or pink? Or why do they want a nose ring? Or their body image or their clothes, or how they were driving their car. It's like, oh my gosh, I never realized I was being so critical. And I could blame it on, oh well, my father. He was very critical. He was a very unhappy person. Do I want to be unhappy? No. Or you could blame it on other things. That, like the Pharisees, they thought they had the authority to judge because they were of the priestly caste. They were responsible for the other Jewish people under them, keeping them on the straight and narrow. And so they probably thought that at that time that they had the authority to judge this woman. But Jesus came to teach us differently. He came to teach us, trying to teach us to be loving and kind and compassionate, and to release our imprisoned splendor. I think I love that thought. I am releasing my imprisoned splendor. With the help of the Master Jesus, or anybody can help Buddha, anybody that you want to think about as an example, is a beautiful thing. First of all, Jesus taught us to love God, to love our neighbor, to love our enemies. Very difficult. But then in Matthew chapter 7, he said, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged, and with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you." Now, frankly, I don't believe God judges us, but we judge ourselves, and that might infer something about karma, which I don't think karma is a bad thing. It's just something here for us to learn something from. And I love this. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye? Which again wants us to look at ourselves and see, okay, where am I coming from when I'm making this judgment? It must mean that there's something about me that I don't like, so I'm trying to make myself feel better about judging someone else. Anyway, all these things are things that we can work on ourselves. And we can be observant of our thoughts. We can be, the thought comes so quickly, so that even if the thought comes, we can just see it as a cloud passing in the sky and say, oh, I choose to think differently about this. I will forgive myself for making this judgment, and then hopefully it doesn't count against us when we do that. But the more we look at ourselves, the more we think, we notice our thoughts, the easier it is to catch our thought before, because the thought comes first and then the emotions. And I think when we are judgmental, it can lead to anger, and it can lead to things that are even violence sometimes. We see that with people thinking that they can make judgments about people, and it can even lead to violence, which, bless them, they just haven't reached the point yet to be able to see what they are doing. But when we judge, it causes in us contraction, which can cause health problems and not make us angry instead of peaceful and joyful. If we decide to look at it in a loving way and a way to where we can accept what's happening, we can accept it, then we can find peace and joy in ourselves, and we feel much better. White Eagle talks about don't try to weed somebody else's garden before you weed your own garden, which is the same thing. He tells us to be very strict with ourselves, but very lenient with other people, because we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know what they've had to go through. We don't know what lessons they have come this time to work on. We have no idea to even attempt to try to judge what other people are doing or saying. If we can just reach the point to where we can accept, we might not agree, but if we can just reach the point to accept what is going on, what is the color of their hair, or whether they have a nose ring, or whatever, a tattoo, or being as old as I am, elderly, some people would say, although I don't feel like it. Things have changed tremendously since I was young. I mean, when I was young, nobody would even have thought of having a tattoo or a nose ring. Or when we were at my son's house, Alva has a granddaughter that is in school there in Richmond, Virginia. And so we wanted her to be able to contact my son if she needed something, or because her parents are in New Jersey, so he's much closer. So Alvin went to visit her, and they swapped information, and my daughter-in-law said, oh, maybe she could even babysit for us sometime. Alva took a picture of her, and she had a nose ring. I thought, I hope my son is more tolerant than I would be. I mean, I have to work on myself all the time. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I realize it's something within me that I need to change my belief system. I need to make it less strict. And like I said, thoughts come so quickly that sometimes it's very difficult to remember who you want to be before you have that thought. But at least I know that I can always dispel the thought and bless the other person and bless myself and forgive myself for having that thought, because it's a rather old-fashioned thought in these days. And but it's amazing what things come up sometimes, and you have to look at it and say, oh my gosh, where did that come from? I need to try to change that belief system wherever it is. But we can only do it if we're able to look at ourselves, to look at our thoughts, because they lead to emotions, and emotions might be, if it's a judgment, might be a negative emotion, and we don't want it to go that far if we can just catch it quick enough. So I've had to think very carefully about why I do judge. Being a nurse, I had to be aware of a lot of different details. And at first I thought, well, it's just because I see so much detail. You know, I just, I can see these things. I saw a video of what people sometimes wear in Walmart, and I have not wanted to go there since. I'm sure it's not that bad. Elvis says it's not that bad. But it's like, if I can just maybe avoid some things, I won't have to judge them. But that in itself, I need to strengthen myself up some more so that I can expose myself to things, and then I can say, okay, I can change my thought about those things. I can be accepting. I can send them love and compassion, because like I said, we don't know what's going on inside of other people. And so we don't want to project on them our criticism, because that's not really appropriate. And if I could just reach that point that Jesus was, and he says that we all have the ability to do that, it just takes a lot of diligence. It takes a lot of examining yourself, examining things that are going on in your life. And when you're around critical people, I have in the past had trouble with being around people that were critical. And have I never been critical myself? I have. So how can I feel bad if somebody's critical toward me if I have been critical about other people? And so I read something of White Eagle saying that when you're working on yourself and you're around someone being critical to you, just call on the angels, and they will rebalance the energy. It's like, oh, that's beautiful. I need to remember that, because that's an energy that I don't enjoy, and hopefully I'm working on myself to not be critical. But this will help me balance that energy when I feel like I'm being around that critical energy. I wish I had known that when I was a child, because my father was very critical. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that, working with your little self, your child. But now I'm an adult, and I don't have to respond like I did when I was a child. I can be assertive, and I can be loving, and I can choose. If at first I start to react, I can see what somebody might be pushing my buttons. I can choose to look at that and look at myself and say, why? Why am I reacting? I need to go in and get rid of that button, because I don't want to react. I want to always react in love and kindness and thoughtfulness and acceptance. Accept everything. This is a little prayer I got from the Science of Mind. Right now, in this holy moment, I consciously and intentionally forgive myself and all others. I come to realize that the God of my understanding is not glorified by shame and guilt, nor is the divine magnified by thoughts and feelings of revenge, self-pity, martyrdom, blame, and judgment. I no longer set myself up as a judge and jury of myself and of my fellow travelers along our spiritual pathways. I breathe in the gentle grace of forgiveness. I rethink my life and realize that if I had the opportunity to redo some of my words and actions of the past, I would do them today in a higher and better way. I have grown. I am not the same person anymore. I have learned some compassion for myself and for others I blamed and judged. I am inspired by the psalmist who asks, "Create in me a clean heart, O God." More than anything in the world, I desire a clean heart. And now let us quiet our thoughts and enter into a space for the communion, to raise our vibrations and enter a temple in the world of spirit where we can commune with the higher masters, beings, brothers. The Lord Christ is here with us now. Use your own creative imagination and see him before you. Feel the emanation of his glorious Spirit. In the silence, to you individually, he offers the communion of spirit, the bread which symbolizes the cosmic body of the Christ. Take and eat. Absorb from him the bread of heaven. Then accept from him the cup of wine, the symbol of his divine love. Sip and feel this power flowing all through your being. For this, in your consciousness, makes you at one with him. we are one in him and God. God blesses you, everyone. And in the silence, may we absorb the will of God, that this will should ever find selfless expression in energy and activity through service to all of God's creation. Amen.